Hello? This mic. Fairfield RTM. Will the clerk take the roll? Ken Estorita, Peter Britton, Melissa Longo, Brooks Baracino, Tara Cook-Littman, Amy O'Shea, she's online, Dave Rock,
Here.
Chris Shea, Mike Hardigan, Jeff Steele, Melissa Strauss, Cindy Waldron, Laura Carson, she's online.
Here.
Thanks. Marcy Spallier, here. Liz Esma, Josh Garskoff, he's
Here.
online. Kristen O'Neill, Sharon Pastilli, Jay Walk, Jennifer Barahona, Rob Blanchard, Nancy Donnie, Andy Graceffa,
Here.
Steve Barretts, John Delgado, John Kuhn, Scott Nickel, Carrie Burcham, Chris Carroll, Colin Colburn, Christine Ludswickiak, thanks, Drew Georgiadis, Lisa Havey, Mark McDermott, Matt Ambrose, Justin Contrado, Margaret Horton, Pierre Ratsky. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Let's stand for the pledge. Or something. I don't think the mics are working again.
I appreciate that. I heard you say. Thanks.
Doesn't look like.
Didn't hear you got for the pledge, but I can hear you.
They can't hear.
The mics aren't working again.
But they couldn't hear online either.
Not when I yell.
All right.
All right. Do you want to just sit?
I'll sit right here.
Sit right here. See if they can hear now.
Can you hear online?
There's an echo.
Does anyone else have their?
It's coming from Margaret Horton. Please mute yourself.
All right. Ooh. Sorry about that, everyone. We're going to move on to item 2 on our agenda to consider and act upon the minutes of the regular meeting held on January 29th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Blanchard, seconded by Representative Wackerman. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none from the body, or is there any discussion from the public? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. On our consent calendar, we have agenda item 6, which is the Historic District Commission alternate appointment. Item 7, which is the Employees Retirement Board appointment. And item number 9, which is the Rooster River Grant. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Representative Walk, seconded by Representative Donnie. Are there any discussion on the consent calendar? Seeing none, although, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
The consent calendar passes.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? No? Yet? Okay.
We can hear you now.
All right, we're just going to vote for the consent calendar one more time. All those in favor of the consent calendar signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The consent calendar passes. Thank you. We're going to move on to item 3 regarding the Affordable Housing Committee report and item number 4, which was the noise complaint report, and we heard those last week in committee. So we'll move on to item number 5, which is to consider and act upon the following appointments to the Fair Rent Commission as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Ahmed Abraham, unaffiliated, 18 Old Stratfield Road, term November 2023 to 2025. Thomas Lambert D., 729 Burroughs Road, term November 2023 to 2026. Douglas A. Jones D., 1304 Fairfield Woods Road, term November 2023 to 2026. Do I have a motion to approve? Approved by Representative Pistilli, seconded by Representative Nichols. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Steele.
Thank you. Hello?
Is this one where, no,
Um,
oh,
testing. Yeah. Jeff Steele, District 3. I know we discussed this item a little bit last week and we heard from the three nominees. And I know this was discussed at length at the Board of Selectmen meeting, which again, I didn't hear the part that was discussed. I'm just a little concerned in not having the full slate nominated at once. So without getting into personalities here, and that's not necessary here, it's more, I'd like to see a full slate. They can't even act yet anyways. There's not we don't have a tenant. We have a landlord. We don't have a tenant. So there's really nothing that can happen yet. And I know my understanding is this was put in front of us to at least get some momentum, get the ball rolling. I understand that, but there's still nothing that can be done. The group can't meet. Things can't get decided upon. And I would just think we have to fill this group. Let's do it all at once. Let's look at all the candidates that could still come before us. The other thing is, without having the required positions here or backgrounds involved or represented, that bothers me. We don't have a party balance here. I know that means we still have to have, I guess, 2 Republicans. There are 3 spots already filled, 2 3 years and a 2 year. So that means there's a 2 year and a 1 year left. The 2. Hello.
it's working again. Representative Steele, though, unfortunately, no one on WebEx heard you. So if you want if you want to go up and repeat yourself.
Sorry, folks. We did hear Representative Steele up until the mic cut out in the room. The mic is only cutting out in the speakers in the room. It is not coming out on WebEx as long as you hold down the mic.
Awesome. That's great to know. So we'll keep the mic held down even though we don't have it on the speakers. We appreciate that. Representative Pistilli.
Sharon Pistilli, District 5. I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting during this exact discussion. The prior administration, we voted on this commission in June. So there were months to take action on this, and taking some action with a partial slate is far better than taking no action at all. And therefore, I'm urging everyone to vote for the slate, the current slate as presented.
Thank you, Representative Pistilli. Representative Astorita.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ken Astorita, District 1. I just want to reiterate what Representative Steele said. But so I just want to reiterate, I'm having trouble with that word tonight, what Representative Steele said, but I agree. I think it helps if we have a full slate because you have an ordinance that has very specific membership requirements. So in addition to a landlord and a tenant and the party balance, I think you would want to have your candidates set in place. So if you need to move somebody around, not appointing partially gives you the flexibility to do that. So I just think from a practical matter, just giving us the flexibility to populate this committee would be helpful. And so as a result, I'm going to be voting no.
Thank you, Representative Astorita. Is there any other comments from the body? Questions from the body? Anyone online? Can you hear me? Oh, someone said that. Laura said, maybe it's if you're via phone versus via computer audio. I'm not sure. Representative Carson, are you via phone or via computer audio?
Computer.
She said both. Oh, no, Dave can. Wonderful. Okay. We're going to move on. If anyone on WebEx wants to comment, we're going to try for it. Just put it in the chat. Representative Corton's monitoring it. Is there anyone in the chat? Okay. Okay. All right. Seeing no other body, I'm going to move to the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak about this item? Again, if you're online and you can hear me and you're from the public, just put it in the chat. Seeing none, we're going to take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
If you're on WebEx, I think we had difficulty hearing, so just type in your vote into the chat and Representative Horton will note that to our town clerk. I'm going to move on to any abstentions within the body. Is there any abstentions within the body that's here? I mean, in person. All right, thank you. We're going to wait for Representative Horton to relay to kind of thank you. We're going to try a different method here.
I don't know if it might feedback, so just be prepared to mute it.
Okay.
Can
you,
like
is
that.
it on now?
It's on.
Okay,
Ask
can they
if
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just type in the chat if for some reason you can no longer hear, and Representative Horton will keep track of that. We're going to move on to item number 8. To hear, consider, and act upon the following
resolution is recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds be reallocated as described in the attached Exhibit A. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Wackerman, seconded by Representative Waldron. Is there any discussion on this item? Representative Steele.
We're still gonna press it though, right?
No, just talking. It's just a talk into the computer.
Talk into the computer.
Well, you can stand up.
All right, Jeff Steele, District 3. I just had a question. Maybe it's to Mr. Becker. And I didn't ask this at the committee meeting because I think this came on in front of us so quickly, and I was digesting it and trying to understand everything. My question is, and I'm glad we had that one item. I think it was 16 addressed, so that was appreciated. How was the decision making done in terms of how it was going to be allocated? In other words, when there was projects completed, excess funds, or projects not completed and those funds taken and put somewhere else, remind me, was it just the Board of Selectmen that did that, or was there a committee, or who made the decision where to put the excess funds in which projects? I don't think we asked that. And if we did, just remind me.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was the finance department. The discussion was largely between myself, the first selectman, the controller, and one of our financial analysts who handles the capital projects. And the main goal was that if it was an existing project that needed additional dollars to get to a point of completion, or had a similar, and Brewster River was often. Okay. Does that work? Okay. So the focus was existing projects that already had allocations but needed additional funds to be fully completed, or to bring them to a point of some point of conclusion. So if you look at downtown resiliency, we wanted to get to design phase 1. Rooster River, we wanted to get to design again on phase 1. So we were keeping those types of projects. And then the rest of it, by and large, you see some smaller adjustments. But the rest of it went largely to the pavement and sidewalk, because it was something that we knew we could encumber and expand. The issue being that we didn't want to create additional projects in that would start an entire process over from scratch. So you notice we didn't add projects to this like in the past. So it gets, again, back to places that we knew we could allocate and get the funds spent down. Just one. With the exception of one item, which was the guard, the fence at Jennings for $30,000. That was actually the only additional. That was exactly, and actually, technically, that was a townwide guardrail and fencing program already existed. We added $30,000 and added one item within it versus just closing it out. Okay. So the Perry's Green bulkhead was an existing project. So when we were looking at actually being able to completely fund that within the ARP allocation, it was adding to an existing project. So when the bids came in, it was higher than they had projected. So we added the money that would get them to completion.
One more follow-up, sorry. Are any projects here left without the funding that you would have liked? Or is everything, looking at this whole thing, I'm not sure what is still left without funding, or what you are still on the wish list of things that are not completed and that could have been. I'm just looking at the prioritization. So in other words, all 40 then, it's just been moved around and all 40 are now being funded, or were there some left off, or were some that are incomplete because of the change of funds?
So, I mean, there's certainly areas that down the road might need more funding. I mean, we could talk about the as an example, the downtown resiliency project, we wanted to get to design phase 1 and then look at what we actually are looking at cost wise. So do we envision that if design phase 1 then gets done, there might later on be other dollars? Yes, but we weren't, it's not where we would want it within this particular project. I mean, the digitization for town hall records could be a significant project, but again, that has now sat for a few years and struggled at movement. We believe that with the allocation and the amount of time left that we'll be able to complete that, do I expect down the road that there's going to be a whole another round of digitization need? Sure. But could you encumber and then spend within the timeframes necessary? Probably not. So we didn't want to risk it. Is that
Okay, that's
not
fine.
exactly where you're going, but.
Thank you, Mr. Becker and Representative Steele. Are there any other questions from the body? Representative Barahona.
Representative Barahona? You can hear me. They can hear me, but you can't. Got it. Representative Barahona, District 6. I asked some questions last week, and I'm not going to hold up the vote on this based on the 150 that was not utilized for the mental health needs that was originally identified. But I just do want to go on the record stating that, as I did last week, I'm a licensed clinical social worker who has worked in mass response to trauma community-wide, and we take dramatic action when there's a mass shooting or something. We have a crisis of that proportion with youth mental health right now, such as that the Surgeon General of the U.S. issued an advisory. It's one of the leading causes of death of our children is suicide. In the time of the ARPA allocation, we had 2 young people lost in this community to suicide. So I'm asking that the town do better to come up with a more robust plan for addressing mental health crisis, and that it's not a good look that we did not use $150,000 that we had earmarked for this over the past 3 years since the pandemic started. And again, I'm not, I think we can find money to do this in other ways. I understand that the issues of timing are such that we need to allocate it and put it somewhere where it can be spent, but it doesn't negate the need for us to figure this out as a community before there's another crisis, tragedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Barahona. Are there any other questions from the body, comments from the body? Representative Astorita.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Ken Astorita, District 1. I just have a question on the $2.8 million for the Rooster River project. So according to the notes, there's an additional period of comment. But I guess my question is, if that becomes a prolonged process and the money can't be spent in time, I know there's a footnote there saying it's going to be reallocated to paving, but do we have the ability to spend it, I guess, with the additional paving that we've already got planned? Will we be able to use the funds?
Thank you, Mr. Becker.
Confused.
Yeah, we actually did cover that we can encumber that. So if it isn't spent by the end of this year, we can encumber it by 12/31 and expend the funds next year. And we're confident with the amount of paving need in the town, paving and sidewalks that are all been identified in the studies, that won't be a problem at all. This is part of the. Yep.
So it's either Rooster. Yeah, so it's either Rooster River or paving. There's no risk of losing the funds.
So the funds, as in this document right now, if it doesn't go to Rooster River, we'll need to come back through all 3 boards, be approved and reallocated out. And the plan on the administration side is to, at that time, ask for it to go to the paving and sidewalk line. And the Rooster, within the waterfall, there's an allocation that currently is earmarked for paving, but that would then move to Rooster River. So within the waterfall, the Rooster, I mean, I know there's been a lot of discussion about Rooster River. There is money sitting in the waterfall for one. They're just going to flip if that's the case. So
And, I would recommend within a few months we make that decision so that we also have time to go through all the boards, not cut it too close. And the capital method through bonding has the most flexibility was our point.
Okay. Yeah, that was just my concern. I just want to make sure that we've got a plan in place. If we need to reallocate, that we can get all that stuff done in time to not lose the money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Representative Estrada and Mr. Becker. Are there any other questions or comments from the body? Again, in the chat, if there's any. Seeing none, are there any from the public? Again, we do have one member, please come up. You could come up here, I think. You got to hold this button down and just state your name, address, and
So good evening, everyone. My name is Dick Mahusky and I live on Colonial Drive. I'm also the Secretary of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. I'd like to call your attention to item number 7, which is defunded on the revised ARPA project list before you. Based on past conversations with the town, we were of the impression that the $376,000 would remain available on the ARPA list, but now be directed not to a shoreline wave study, but to producing a new master flood erosion and climate resiliency plan for the entire town. This would include all shore areas, as well as the inland river basins, Brewster, Mill, and Sasko Creek. We were disappointed to see this item defunded. Our board, along with engineering and conservation, is at the final edit of a scope of work for this project. Our timeline calls for the RFP to go out in March. Responses due by early April. We then expect the contract will be issued in late April. Preliminary plans will be discussed in meetings with town entities and the public to elicit feedback during July and August. The final report will be issued in December 24 or January 25, which will be a full 10 years after our original master plan was presented to the Board of Selectmen. At the February 6th Board of Finance meeting, a quote, preliminary and tentative capital plan for discussion purposes only, unquote, was presented. This does contain an item to update our master plan in fiscal year 26, which means those funds would not be available until July 1st, 2025, a full year's delay of a project to address the future effects of climate change on our community. We made the same basic comments to the Board of Finance on 2/6 with no result. We hope you will agree with our request and ask that you please restore the funds to this replacement priority project. Thank you.
Man, I'm so confused.
thank you. Any other members from the public? If you want to come up here, state your name.
Hey everybody, my name's Daphne Dixon. I live at 177 Siglin Drive. I was very happy to see that there was ARPA funding originally put in for electric vehicles, $700,000. That was great. Really represents Fairfield as being a sustainable town and really a model in the state of Connecticut. But now I see that in that ARPA funding that there's only $400,000 for the municipal fleet of the beautiful, vehicles that were purchased. There's 16 vehicles that have been purchased for the fleet, and that is great. But there's other municipal vehicles that are owned by the town that this additional $300,000 could be used for. There's administrative vehicles in the police department, and there's non-patrol, and there's administrative in the fire department. I think you all know that the air in this area is some of the worst in the country. I'm sure you know that air pollution causes lung cancer, breast cancer, heart disease, stroke, asthma. We have some of the worst asthma in the country. It's really up to all of us to make the best decisions we can to protect our air. And we can do that when we make choices to purchase electric vehicles. In addition to the air quality, I'm sure you all know that once you purchase an electric vehicle, the cost of them is much less than a conventional vehicle. Charging is less than gas, and there's much less maintenance. So I would urge you to consider reallocating that funding that I believe went to paving back to electric vehicles so that we can look at the fleets in the police, non-patrol, and fire and see where we can put that funding back to the electric vehicles so that we can make sure we have the cleanest air possible and that we can save money with these vehicles. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. Are there any other comments from the public? Again, in the chat, if there's anyone online from the public that would like to speak. Seeing none, we'll go back to the body. Are there any other members from the body that would like to speak? Representative Steele.
Jeff Steele, District 3. Mr. Becker, could you address number 7 and number 33? I'm just curious why those decisions were made. I think they're great points. I just like to hear why.
Thank you, Mr. Becker.
So we'll start with number 7. Originally in as a high intensity wave and erosion damage and resiliency study. There were discussions about moving that to a master plan. There are again concerns. The administration at this time does not feel that it is as close as the Flood and Erosion Control Board believes it is. From a coastal perspective, of which they also already actually have a plan, moving that into a master plan. The current draft is actually primarily coastal focused and has a smaller section for the inland. From a master plan perspective, you're looking at doing a coastal plan, an inland plan, actually having annexes that connect them, then interact with the regional partners. There are actually at the MetroCog level connecting all of our bordering communities. There are plans that need to be a component of that because how they and we get grants and flooding that starts to our north or vice versa on our north to somebody else's south all really are interconnected. So when addressing a master plan, that RFP has a significant amount of work to be done. Do we believe that they're going to get there? Absolutely. But again, when we start looking at using ARPA dollars for that and the timelines and certainly not just you don't just want to do something, you want to do it right, particularly when we deal with something as substantial as a master plan, finally connecting inland and coastal and our partners. So we will come out at a later date and when they are ready, and we will seek the funds necessary to do this. So just closing out the ARPA funds does not mean that it's over. It just means that it's not the right funding bucket at the right time to make this happen. So on the electric, do you want me to go right into the electric piece or okay? On the electric vehicle part, this is the original allocation was for behind town hall. It was primarily dealing with the town hall fleet. That has been done. The chargers installed. They're still working through some tech. They're up and running, but there's certainly some IT has had quite a bit of things they've had to deal with to really get them, where they need to be. At this point, those particular vehicles are actively being utilized. There are questions about the sizes of the vehicles and whether or not they are a good fit for every department. They work for some. If you have only a couple of items that you need to go out with, that's one thing. But if you're a surveying crew or some of the inspectors, that's another story. I know that police and fire, even when speaking about the non-patrol or non-direct response fleets, that is still complex. Some communities do use all electric vehicles. You see some Teslas in a couple of different communities. One of the problems that you run into, particularly with the police department, is that they're not necessarily pursuit rated. We need to make sure that we do that right. That may turn into a hybrid type of a product. I know that's not a perfect solution, but Ford on their Interceptor line has done very well with the hybrids and is largely moving their fleet in that direction. So again, doing it versus doing it in a more hastily done manner is our focus. So there are purchases that we're going to be making within the fleet. There's items within the current capital budgets. We're going to be asking them to take a hard look at if there's a way to go hybrid or electric, how to manage that, and we'll take it at that time. So this again does not just end it. It says this is not the time or the bucket of funds. That initial project was closed out.
Thank you. And I want to also just echo what Representative Barahona said. So I agree with it completely about mental health. As you know, I'm an advocate of addressing it. So I appreciate you saying that, and I agree 100%.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the body? Are there any online, Margaret? Seeing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Again, I'm not sure that we can hear the people on WebEx, so I think again, we're going to ask you to type it in the chat, your vote, and we'll have Representative Horton relay it to our town clerk. That motion carries unanimously. We're going to move on to the supplemental agenda item, which is item number 10, to consider and act upon the following resolution as requested by the Registrar of Voters, whereas early voting will be utilized for the presidential preference primary to be held on April 2nd, 2024, and whereas a municipality with a population of 20,000 or more may designate one or more additional voting locations, the Fairfield Registrars of Voters have determined and agreed to designate one location for early voting. Now be it resolved that the town of Fairfield will have one designated early voting location for the 2024 presidential preference primary. Do I have a motion to approve? Representative Zezima, seconded by Representative Blanchard. Is there any discussion on this item? I think we might have one or two of the registrars online. I'm not sure if either one of them, are they both online? I saw Ms. Pelosi. I don't know if either of them want to, I don't know if either of them want to speak. If they want to speak, they can put it in the chat. If not, if there's questions for them. I'll see if, are there any questions from the body on this item? Great. Any questions from the public on this item? Or any comments? Okay, we're going to take it to a vote. Although, again, in the chat, if you're online, if you're online in the chat, just record your vote there for Representative Horton. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? And we'll have Representative Horton read the votes online. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Before we adjourn, I just want to remind everyone to pick up their Board of Ed budget books, which are over there. And if you are online and you weren't present at this meeting, watching it online, you can work with the Board of Ed office to get your budget book during hours. Is there any other business to be addressed at this meeting? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Representative Wolk, seconded by Representative Wackerman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 It's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.